The gunshot that killed Cole Dalton's wife echoed in his mind every morning when he woke, and it still rang there 3 years later as he rode along the Rio Grande in the scorching summer of 1878. He had become a man carved from stone, his jaw perpetually set, his gray eyes like flint that sparked but never caught flame. The other ranch hands in San Elizario, Texas, knew better than to speak to him beyond what work demanded, and the saloon girls had long since stopped trying to coax a smile from lips that had forgotten how to curve upward. Cole preferred it that way. Love had burned him once, left him scarred and hollow, and he had sworn on Sarah's grave that he would never let another soul close enough to wound him again. The July heat shimmered off the desert floor as Cole guided his horse along the riverbank, checking the fence line that marked the eastern boundary of the Double R Ranch where he worked. The Rio Grande ran low this time of year, more mud than water in places, but it still carved its ancient path between Texas and Mexico. He had ridden this stretch 100 times, his mind always half elsewhere, trapped in memories of Sarah's laugh, the way she used to braid her honey-colored hair, the sound of her voice calling him home for supper. He lived in the past because the present held nothing for him, and the future stretched out like the desert itself, endless and empty. That was when he heard it, a sound so faint he almost dismissed it as the wind or a bird. But something made him rein in his horse, a big roan gelding named Rust, and tilt his head to listen. There it was again, a splashing, desperate and irregular, coming from downstream where the river bent around a cluster of cottonwood trees. Cole's first instinct was to ignore it. Whatever trouble existed in this world was not his concern anymore. He had learned that caring only brought pain, but the splashing continued, and now he heard something else, a voice, weak and choking. Against his better judgment, Cole urged Rust forward, cantering along the bank until he reached the bend. What he saw made him dismount faster than he had moved in years. A woman was in the water, barely keeping her head above the surface. Her dress, once probably white or pale blue, was torn and filthy, weighing her down. Her dark hair spread around her like seaweed, and her arms flailed with the uncoordinated movements of someone who did not know how to swim. As Cole watched, she went under, came up gasping, then went under again. He did not think. Thinking was what got a man killed or worse, got him involved. But his body moved of its own accord, his boots hitting the muddy bank as he ran. He splashed into the river, the warm water soaking his pants as he waded deeper. The current was not strong, but for someone who could not swim, it might as well have been a raging torrent. The woman surfaced again, her face a mask of terror, her mouth open in a soundless scream. Cole reached her just as she started to sink once more. His hand closed around her arm and he hauled her against him, feeling how thin she was even through the sodden layers of her dress. She fought him at first, panic giving her a wild strength, but he held firm. "Stop fighting me," he said, his voice harsh from disuse. "I got you." Something in his tone must have reached her because she went limp, letting him pull her through the water toward the bank. He half dragged, half carried her onto dry land, and she collapsed onto the dirt, coughing up river water and gasping for air. Cole stood over her, water streaming from his clothes, staring down at this woman who had just forced him to act, to care, even if only for a moment. She was young, maybe 23 or 24, with a delicate face that would have been pretty if not for the bruises. That was when Cole noticed them, the dark purple marks on her jaw, the swelling around her left eye, the way she held her ribs as if they pained her. His jaw tightened. He knew what those marks meant. He had seen them before on women who came through town, women running from men who used their fists instead of their words. The woman looked up at him, her eyes dark brown and filled with a terror that had nothing to do with nearly drowning. She scrambled backward, her breath coming in short, panicked gasps. "Please," she whispered, her voice raw. "Please do not hurt me." Cole felt something crack inside his chest, a fissure in the stone he had built around himself. He raised his hands slowly, showing her his palms. "I ain't going to hurt you," he said, and even to his own ears his voice sounded rough, unused to gentleness. "You were drowning. I pulled you out." She stared at him, searching his face for the lie, for the trap. Slowly, her breathing steadied, though she kept her distance. Cole noticed the way her dress hung on her frame, how he could see the outline of her collarbones, the hollow of her cheeks beneath the bruises. Whoever had done this to her had not just beaten her. They had starved her too. "What is your name?" he asked. She hesitated, and he saw the calculation in her eyes. Should she tell him? Should she lie? Finally, she whispered, Deanna Norton. "I am Cole Dalton." He looked back toward where Rust stood patiently waiting. "Can you stand?" Deanna tried, but her legs would not hold her. She sank back down, and Cole could see the exhaustion in every line of her body. Whatever she had been through, it had taken everything from her. "I am going to pick you up and put you on my horse," Cole said, speaking slowly as if to a spooked animal. "Then I am going to take you into town. There is a doctor there and a boarding house run by a widow named Mrs. Henderson. She is a good woman. She will help you." "No," Deanna said, and there was desperation in her voice. "No doctor, no town. He will find me." Cole crouched down, bringing himself to her level. "Who will find you?" She shook her head, her wet hair falling across her face. "I cannot say. Please. You saved my life. I am grateful, but I cannot go where there are people. He will find me, and he will kill me this time." This time. The words hung in the air between them. Cole studied her, this broken woman who had somehow ended up in the Rio Grande, more dead than alive. Every instinct he had developed over the past 3 years told him to walk away. This was not his problem. He had saved her life, and that was more than most would have done. He could ride away now, conscience clear, and forget he ever saw her. But he could not forget the terror in her eyes or the way she had whispered, "Please do not hurt me," as if she expected every man she met to raise a fist to her. He could not forget the bruises that mapped violence across her skin, or the way she held herself as if her body was something that had betrayed her, something that had brought her only pain. "My cabin is about 2 miles north," Cole heard himself say. "It is off the main road, out of the way. You can rest there, get cleaned up and dry, then we will figure out what comes next." Deanna looked at him with those dark eyes, still wary, still afraid. "Why would you help me?" It was a fair question. Cole did not have a good answer. "Because you need help," he said finally, "and because I can." It was not the whole truth. The whole truth was that, for the first time in 3 years, he had felt something other than the endless gray numbness that had become his life. He had felt the rush of urgency as he ran into the water, the physical strain of pulling her to safety, the crack in his armor when she had begged him not to hurt her. He did not want to feel again. Feeling meant hurting. But it was too late. The stone had cracked and something was leaking through. Deanna finally nodded, and Cole moved carefully, telegraphing every motion as he scooped her into his arms. She weighed almost nothing, and he felt a surge of anger at whoever had reduced her to this. He settled her onto Rust's saddle, then mounted behind her, keeping one arm around her waist to hold her steady. She tensed at first, then gradually relaxed against him, exhaustion winning out over fear. They rode in silence, the sun beating down on them as they left the river behind. Deanna's head drooped against Cole's chest, and he thought she might have fallen asleep. He kept Rust to a walk, not wanting to jostle her more than necessary. The land stretched out around them, scrub, brush, and mesquite, the mountains purple in the distance. This was harsh country, unforgiving and brutal, but it was honest. You knew where you stood in the desert. It did not pretend to be anything other than what it was. Cole's cabin came into view, a small structure of adobe and wood that he had built himself in the months after Sarah died. He had not been able to stay in the house they had shared in town, surrounded by her things, haunted by her absence. So he had moved out here, away from people, away from sympathy, away from anything that reminded him of what he had lost. The Double R ranch owner, a gruff old man named Robert Ruskin, had not minded. Cole did his work, never caused trouble, and kept to himself. That was enough. He dismounted and reached up to help Deanna down. She swayed on her feet, and he kept his hands on her shoulders until he was sure she would not fall. "Come on," he said, guiding her toward the cabin door. Inside, the cabin was sparse but clean. A bed in one corner, a table with 2 chairs, a stove, some shelves with supplies. Cole had never seen the need for much. He sat Deanna down in one of the chairs and moved to light the stove. "I will heat some water," he said. "You can wash up, and I will find you some dry clothes." Deanna looked around the cabin, and Cole could see her taking in the details, the lack of any feminine touch, the single coffee cup by the basin, the empty hooks on the wall where pictures might have hung once but did not anymore. "You live alone," she said. It was not a question. "Yes." "No wife." "No family." Cole's hands stilled on the stove. "I had a wife. She died." He did not offer more, and Deanna did not ask. She understood, he realized. She knew what it was like to have words catch in your throat, truths too painful to speak aloud. While the water heated, Cole found an old shirt and a pair of pants that would be too big for her but were better than the ruined dress. He set them on the table and then turned his back, giving her privacy to change. He heard the rustle of fabric, a sharp intake of breath that suggested pain, then silence. "I am decent," Deanna said quietly. Cole turned. She looked strange in his clothes, drowning in fabric that she had rolled and tucked to make fit. But her face was less pale now, and the worst of the mud had been wiped away. The bruises stood out starkly against her skin. "Are you hungry?" he asked. She nodded, and he set about making a simple meal of beans and cornbread, food that was plain but filling. They ate in silence, Cole watching as Deanna devoured the food as if she had not eaten in days. She probably had not. When she finished, she looked up at him. "I should tell you what happened." "You do not have to," Cole said. "Yes, I do. You deserve to know what you have gotten yourself into by helping me." Cole poured himself a cup of coffee and sat down across from her. "All right, I am listening." Deanna took a breath, and he saw her gather herself, pulling together the threads of her courage. "I was married," she began, "to a man named Raymond Norton. We lived in El Paso. He was a banker, respectable, well-liked. Everyone thought I was lucky to have caught his attention." Her voice was flat, emotionless, and Cole recognized it. It was the voice of someone who had retreated so far inside themselves that they could narrate their own tragedy as if it had happened to someone else. "At first he was kind," Deanna continued. "But after the wedding, things changed. He had a temper, and when he drank, it got worse. He started with words, telling me I was stupid, worthless, that no one else would ever want me. Then it became more than words." She touched her ribs, and Cole saw her wince. "He broke 2 of my ribs a month ago. I tried to hide it, but his sister saw the bruises and told him he needed to be more careful, not to stop, just to be more careful where he hit me so people would not see." Cole's hands tightened around his coffee cup. "Why did you not leave?" "I tried, twice. The first time he found me at the train station and dragged me back. He locked me in our bedroom for a week. No food, a little water. When he finally let me out, I was too weak to try again. The second time I made it to Misilla. I thought I was safe. But he came after me, and when he found me, he beat me so badly I could not walk for 3 days. She paused, and Cole saw her swallow hard. 2 weeks ago, I tried again. I stole some money from his desk and left in the middle of the night. I bought a ticket for San Antonio, but I got off in San Elizario. I thought maybe I could disappear, find work, start over. But he must have figured out what I did because his men came looking for me. I saw them yesterday, asking questions at the hotel where I was staying. So I ran. Into the river, Cole said. I thought I could hide in the reeds along the bank, but the mud was slippery and I fell in. I did not know how to swim. I tried to grab onto something, but the current pulled me under. She looked at him, her eyes shining with unshed tears. If you had not been there, I would have drowned. You are safe now, Cole said, though even as he said it, he knew it might not be true. If this Raymond Norton was as determined as Deanna described, he would not stop looking for her. He will not give up, Deanna said, echoing his thoughts. He thinks I am his property, and he will not tolerate losing what belongs to him. Cole stood and walked to the window, looking out at the desert landscape. He should take her to the sheriff. That was the right thing to do, the smart thing. But he had seen enough of the law to know it did not always protect the people who needed it most, especially women running from their husbands. In the eyes of the law, a man had rights over his wife, and those rights often trumped her safety. You will stay here, he said, turning back to her. For now, until we figure something out. I cannot impose on you, Deanna protested. You have already done so much. You are not imposing, I am offering. Why? She asked the question again, the same one from the riverbank. You do not know me. Why would you risk getting involved in this? Cole thought about it, searching for the truth in his own motivations. Because I know what it is like to lose someone, he said slowly. To have someone taken from you and to be powerless to stop it. If I can stop it this time, if I can help you, then maybe it means something. It was more than he had said to anyone in years, and the words felt strange in his mouth, like a language he had forgotten and was just now remembering. But they were true. That crack in his armor had widened, and through it, he could feel the stirring of something he thought had died with Sarah. Purpose. Connection. The faint possibility that his life might matter again, that he might matter for something other than work and survival. Diana's eyes filled with tears, and this time they spilled over. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you. Cole nodded, uncomfortable with her gratitude, with the emotion that thickened the air between them. You should rest, he said. Take the bed, I will sleep outside. I cannot take your bed. Yes, you can. You are hurt and you have been through hell. You need proper rest. His tone left no room for argument. Deanna stood, moving carefully, and made her way to the bed. She lay down with a sigh, and Cole saw the lines of pain ease from her face as she sank into the mattress. Within minutes, she was asleep, her breathing deep and even. Cole took his bedroll and went outside, spreading it on the ground near the cabin door. The night air was cooler, a relief after the day's heat, and the stars spread across the sky like diamonds scattered on black velvet. He lay on his back, hands behind his head, and stared up at them. He had not planned for this, had not wanted this, but life, it seemed, did not care much about plans. Deanna Norton had fallen into his world, and now he had to figure out what to do about it. The smart thing would be to take her somewhere far away, put her on a train, and send her east where Raymond Norton would never find her. But something told him it would not be that simple. Men like Norton did not let go easily. Cole thought about Sarah, as he did every night. But for the first time, the memory did not bring only pain. He remembered how she had believed in helping people, how she had always seen the best in others even when they did not deserve it. She would have brought Deanna home in a heartbeat, would have nursed her back to health and found a way to keep her safe. She would have expected Cole to do the same. Maybe that was why he had pulled Deanna from the river. Maybe some part of him still remembered the man Sarah had loved, the man who cared about right and wrong, who did not turn away when someone needed help. That man had died with Sarah, or so Cole had thought. But perhaps he had only been sleeping, buried under grief and bitterness, waiting for a reason to wake up. Cole closed his eyes and let sleep take him, his hand resting on the revolver at his side. Old habits died hard, and in this country, it paid to sleep armed. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges, its own decisions. Tonight he had done what he could. He had saved a life. For now, that was enough. Morning came with the sun blazing over the horizon, turning the desert gold. Cole woke stiff and sore from sleeping on the ground, but he had endured worse. He rolled up his bedroll and went inside quietly, not wanting to wake Deanna. But she was already awake, sitting at the table with her hands wrapped around a cup of water, staring at nothing. "How are you feeling?" he asked. She looked up, startled, as if she had forgotten where she was. "Better." "Sore, but better." Cole nodded and moved to the stove, starting a fire to make coffee and breakfast. He could feel Deanna watching him, her gaze following his movements. It made him self-conscious in a way he had not felt in years. "You have done this before," she said. "Taken care of someone." "My wife. Before she died, she was sick for a while. I learned to cook, to manage a house." He did not say more. Did not tell her how Sarah had wasted away, how the consumption had stolen her breath and her strength until there was nothing left but bones and determination. Did not tell her how he had held her hand at the end, feeling it go cold in his, knowing he was losing the only good thing in his life. "I am sorry," Deanna said softly, "for your loss. It was a long time ago, 3 years. A lifetime. Yesterday." They ate breakfast in silence, and then Cole said, "I need to go to the ranch today. Check in with Ruskin, make sure he knows I am still working. You will be safe here. No one knows about this place except me and Ruskin, and he would not tell anyone." Diana's eyes widened with fear. "You are leaving me alone, just for a few hours. I will be back before noon. There is a rifle by the door and a revolver in the drawer by the bed. Do you know how to shoot?" She shook her head. Cole hesitated, then said, "Come here." He took the revolver from the drawer, checked to make sure it was loaded, and then stood behind Deanna, guiding her hands to hold the weapon properly. She was trembling, and he could feel it through the contact of his hands on hers. "It is heavier than it looks," she said. "Always is. Keep both hands on the grip, like this. When you aim, look down the barrel at your target. Do not close your eyes when you pull the trigger. The gun is going to kick back, so be ready for it." He walked her through the mechanics, the safety, how to reload. Deanna was a quick study, and after a few dry fires she seemed more confident. "If someone comes to that door who is not me, you shoot," Cole said. "Do not hesitate. Do not give them a chance to talk. Just shoot." "I do not know if I can," Deanna whispered. Cole moved to stand in front of her, his gray eyes meeting hers. "If Raymond Norton finds you, what do you think he will do?" Diana flinched. "He will kill me. Then you can shoot him. When it is your life or his, the choice is simple." He saw the steel enter her eyes, the shift from victim to survivor. "All right," she said. "I can do that." Cole nodded and gathered his things. "I will be back soon. Lock the door behind me and do not open it unless you hear me call out." He rode Rust hard toward the Double R, covering the 2 miles in less than 15 minutes. The ranch was a sprawling operation, thousands of acres of grazing land where cattle roamed free until roundup time. The main house sat on a hill, a large adobe structure that had been added to over the years until it was more compound than home. Cole made his way to the barn where he knew he would find Ruskin overseeing the morning work. Robert Ruskin was in his 60s, a man who had built his ranch from nothing and who expected every man who worked for him to earn his keep. He looked up as Cole approached, his weathered face creasing into a frown. "Dalton, was not expecting you today. Thought you were checking the river fence." "I did. It is fine, but something came up." Ruskin's frown deepened. "What kind of something?" Cole hesitated. He did not want to lie to Ruskin, who had given him work when he needed it and never asked questions about his past. But he also did not want to put Diana in danger by spreading word that she was here. "Personal business," Cole said finally. "I need a few days to handle it." Ruskin studied him, his sharp eyes missing nothing. "This have anything to do with why you came back soaking wet yesterday?" Cole had forgotten about his wet clothes. "Yes. You in trouble?" "No, but I am helping someone who is." Ruskin was quiet for a moment, then nodded. "All right, take the time you need, but Dalton, if trouble comes looking, you keep it away from my ranch. I have got men and animals to think about." "I understand. It will not touch the double R, see that it does not." Ruskin turned back to the work at hand, and Cole knew he was dismissed. He rode back to the cabin, his mind churning with plans and possibilities. Diana could not stay hidden forever. Eventually, Raymond Norton would expand his search, and San Elizario was not large enough for someone to disappear completely. They needed a solution, something permanent. When he reached the cabin, he called out before approaching the door. "Diana, it is Cole. I am back." He heard the scrape of the bolt being drawn back, and then the door opened. Diana stood there with the revolver in her hand, and Cole was pleased to see she was holding it correctly. "Any trouble?" he asked. "No, it was quiet." Cole came inside and took off his hat, running a hand through his dark hair. "We need to talk about what happens next." Diana set the revolver down and sat at the table. "I have been thinking about that. I need to get far away from here, somewhere Raymond will never think to look. California, maybe, or up to Colorado. You will need money for that, and new papers, a new name. I have a little money, the cash I stole from Raymond. It is not much, but it might be enough to get me started." Cole pulled out a chair and sat down across from her. "Even with money, it is dangerous for a woman to travel alone. You will be vulnerable, and word travels. If Norton puts out the word that he is looking for you, offers a reward, people will talk." Diana's face fell. "So what do I do? I cannot stay here forever. And I will not let you keep risking your life for me." "What if you did not travel alone?" Cole said slowly, the idea forming even as he spoke. "What if you had someone with you, someone who could protect you?" Diana stared at him. "You mean you?" "I do not have anything keeping me here. The ranch work. It is just work. I can find that anywhere." Even as he said it, Cole realized it was true. He had been existing, not living, for 3 years. Maybe it was time to leave the past behind, to stop haunting the places where he and Sarah had been happy and find a new path. "I cannot ask you to do that," Diana said. "To leave your whole life behind for a stranger. You are not asking, I am offering." Cole met her eyes, and for the first time in years he felt a spark of something beyond the gray numbness, purpose, direction. "I made a promise to myself when my wife died. I promised I would not care about anything or anyone ever again, because caring hurt too much. But then you fell into that river, and I pulled you out, and I realized that maybe shutting myself off from the world was not keeping me safe. It was just making me dead inside." Diana's eyes shimmered with tears. "I do not know what to say." "Say yes. Let me help you get somewhere safe, somewhere you can start over, and maybe along the way I will figure out how to start over too." She reached across the table and placed her hand over his. Her skin was warm, her touch tentative but real. "Yes," she whispered. "Thank you." Cole nodded, feeling the weight of the decision settle over him. He was committing to something here, taking responsibility for another person's life and safety. It terrified him, but it also made him feel alive in a way he had not felt since Sarah died. "We will leave in 2 days," he said. "That will give you time to rest and heal. I will get supplies together and we will head north. Maybe Santa Fe first, then up into Colorado. We will keep moving until we are sure you are safe." "And then what?" Deanna asked. Cole did not have an answer for that. The future was a blank canvas, and he had no idea what picture they would paint on it. "We will figure it out," he said finally, "one step at a time." Over the next 2 days, Cole prepared for their journey. He went into San Elizario and bought supplies, careful to avoid drawing attention to himself. He told the shopkeeper he was planning a hunting trip up in the mountains, which was plausible enough that no one questioned it. He bought dried meat, beans, coffee, ammunition, and 2 good bedrolls. He also bought a dress for Deanna, plain and practical, in a dark blue that would not show trail dust. While he was in town, he heard talk that made his blood run cold. A man from El Paso had been asking questions, showing a photograph of a woman, offering a reward for information. The description matched Deanna perfectly. Cole kept his expression neutral, paid for his supplies, and left quickly. When he got back to the cabin, he told Deanna what he had heard. Her face went pale, but she did not panic. "How much time do we have?" she asked. "Not much. He is in town now, and it is only a matter of time before someone remembers seeing me ride out this direction. We leave tonight." They spent the afternoon packing, working in tense silence. Cole could see the fear in Deanna's eyes, but he could also see her determination. She was stronger than she looked, stronger than she probably knew. What she had survived would have broken most people, but she was still here, still fighting. As the sun set, Cole saddled Rust and loaded their supplies. Deanna changed into the blue dress he had bought her, and when she emerged from the cabin, Cole felt something twist in his chest. She looked like a different person, younger and more hopeful, even with the fading bruises on her face. "Ready?" he asked. "As ready as I will ever be." They mounted up, Deanna sitting behind Cole with her arms wrapped around his waist. It felt strange to have someone so close, to feel another person's warmth against his back. He had been alone for so long that he had forgotten what simple human contact felt like. They rode through the night, following trails that Cole knew well. He kept them off the main roads, sticking to rough country where they were less likely to encounter other travelers. The moon was nearly full, providing enough light to navigate by, and Rust was sure-footed even in the dark. Deanna did not speak, and Cole was grateful for the silence. He needed to focus on their route, on listening for sounds of pursuit. But he was acutely aware of her presence, the way she leaned against him when she grew tired, the way her breath warmed the back of his neck. They stopped a few hours before dawn in a small canyon that offered shelter and cover. Cole helped Deanna down from the horse and spread out the bedrolls while she gathered kindling for a small fire. They worked together with an ease that surprised him, anticipating each other's needs without speaking. When the fire was lit, Cole made coffee and heated some beans. They ate without talking, exhaustion settling over both of them like a heavy blanket. But it was Deanna who finally broke the silence. "Tell me about her," she said softly. "Your wife." Cole's first instinct was to refuse, to shut down the conversation before it could begin, but he found himself speaking, the words coming easier than he expected. Her name was Sarah. "We met when I was 19, working as a hand on a ranch outside of San Antonio. She was the daughter of the ranch cook, and the first time I saw her, I thought she was the prettiest thing I had ever laid eyes on. Turned out she was smart and funny too, and she saw something in me that I did not see in myself. He paused, staring into the fire. "We got married when I was 21. Built a little house in Santa Lazario, started talking about having kids. Then she got sick. Consumption. We tried everything, saw every doctor within 100 miles, but nothing helped. She died 2 days after our third anniversary." Diana was quiet for a long moment. "How did you survive it?" "I did not. Not really. I just kept moving, kept working. I told myself if I did not feel anything, it would not hurt. But it did not work. The hurt was always there. I just got better at ignoring it. Until yesterday." "Until yesterday," Cole agreed. He looked at her, this woman he barely knew, and felt that crack in his armor widen a little more. "What about you? Before Raymond Norton, what was your life like?" Diana smiled, but it was sad. "I grew up in a small town in Louisiana, the youngest of 4 daughters. My father was a teacher and my mother took in sewing. We did not have much, but we were happy. When I was 18, my father died and my mother could not afford to keep all of us. My older sisters were already married, so I decided to go west, find work as a teacher myself." "Is that how you met Norton?" "Yes. I taught at a small school in El Paso. He came to a school recital one evening, said he was charmed by my performance. He courted me for 6 months and I thought I was lucky. A successful man, good-looking, attentive. I did not see the warning signs until it was too late." "What were the signs?" "The way he wanted to know where I was every moment. The way he would get angry if I talked to other men, even in passing. The way he isolated me from my friends, convinced me that they were jealous of our happiness. By the time I realized what was happening, I was his wife, and there was no escape." Cole felt anger rising in him, hot and fierce. "He had no right to treat you that way. He thought he did. The law thought he did. When I went to a judge after the first beating, he told me that a husband has the right to discipline his wife. He said I must have done something to provoke Raymond." Her voice was bitter. "So I stopped asking for help. I realized I was on my own." "You are not on your own now," Cole said. Diana looked at him, and in her eyes he saw something that made his breath catch. Hope, trust, maybe even the beginnings of something more. "No," she said softly, "I am not." They sat in silence after that, finishing their coffee and watching the fire burn down to embers. When it was time to sleep, Cole insisted Diana take both bedrolls and use them for cushioning. He would keep watch, he said, though in truth, he did not think he could sleep even if he tried. His mind was too full, too aware of the changes happening inside him. But exhaustion finally claimed him, and he dozed with his back against a rock and his rifle across his lap. When he woke, the sun was rising, and Diana was already up, folding the bedrolls and preparing to move. She had let him sleep, had taken watch herself, and the gesture touched him more than it should have. They continued north, traveling by day now and making better time. The landscape changed as they climbed in elevation, the desert giving way to grasslands and eventually to pine forests. They passed through small towns, never staying long, always watchful for signs that they were being followed. On the 3rd day, they stopped in a town called Las Vegas, New Mexico, a bustling railroad hub that was full of strangers and movement. Cole thought they could blend in here, rest for a night in a proper hotel before continuing north. He got them 2 rooms at a boarding house run by a Mexican woman named Senora Ortiz. She asked no questions, and her rates were fair. Cole paid for a week, figuring it was better to have a base while they decided on their next move. That evening, after they had both bathed and changed into clean clothes, Cole took Diana to a small restaurant. It was the first time they had eaten a meal that was not cooked over a campfire, and Diana looked almost giddy with the simple pleasure of it. "I had forgotten what real food tastes like," she said, savoring a bite of roast chicken. Cole watched her, feeling something warm unfurl in his chest. She was smiling, a real smile that reached her eyes, and the bruises on her face were fading to yellow and green. She looked younger, lighter, as if the miles between her and Raymond Norton had lifted a physical weight from her shoulders. "You should smile more often," he said without thinking. Deanna's smile widened. "So should you." Cole realized she was right. He had been so focused on getting her to safety, on watching for danger, that he had not noticed the way his own mood had shifted. The gray numbness was receding, replaced by something he did not quite recognize yet, but that felt suspiciously like happiness. After dinner, they walked back to the boarding house through streets lit by lanterns. The town was alive with music and laughter, people going about their lives, and for the first time in years, Cole felt like he was part of the world again instead of just observing it from a distance. When they reached the boarding house, Deanna paused at the bottom of the stairs leading to their rooms. "Cole," she said, and there was something in her voice that made him stop. "I want to thank you for everything. I know I have said it before, but I do not think you understand what you have given me. You have given me my life back." "You did that yourself," Cole said. "I just helped you along the way." Deanna stepped closer, and he could smell the faint scent of lavender from the soap she had used. "You are a good man, Cole Dalton. I know you do not think so, but you are. Your wife was lucky to have you." Before Cole could respond, Deanna stood on her toes and pressed a soft kiss to his cheek. Then she turned and hurried up the stairs, leaving him standing in the darkness, his hand rising to touch the spot where her lips had been. That night, Cole lay in his rented bed, staring at the ceiling and thinking about that kiss. It had been innocent, a gesture of gratitude, nothing more. But it had shaken something loose inside him, something he had locked away when Sarah died. The possibility that he could feel again, that he could care about someone again, that he could maybe even love again. The thought terrified him. Loving Sarah had nearly destroyed him when he lost her. Could he risk that kind of pain again? Could he open himself up to Deanna, knowing that life was fragile and unpredictable, that happiness could be snatched away in an instant? He did not have answers. All he knew was that, when he was with Deanna, the world seemed a little less gray. And maybe that was enough for now. The next morning, Cole went to the telegraph office and sent a message to Robert Ruskin, explaining that he would not be coming back to the Double R and thanking him for the work. It felt like severing the last tie to his old life, and there was a finality to it that was both frightening and liberating. When he returned to the boarding house, Deanna was waiting for him in the small parlor. She had newspapers spread out on a table and was studying them intently. "Looking for something?" Cole asked. "Jobs," Deanna said. "I cannot keep relying on you for everything. I need to earn my keep." Cole sat down beside her. "We are partners in this. You do not owe me anything." "I know, but I need to do something, Cole. I need to feel useful, to know that I am building something for myself." He understood. She had spent years being controlled, being told she was worthless. Now she needed to prove to herself that she could stand on her own. "What kind of work are you looking for?" he asked. "Teaching, if I can find it. Or maybe taking and sewing like my mother did. Anything honest." Cole nodded. "All right, we will ask around, but Deanna, we need to be careful. If Raymond is still looking for you, using your real skills might make you easier to find." Diana's face fell. "I had not thought of that. Maybe you could use a different name, start fresh completely." "What name?" Cole thought for a moment. "What about Deanna Morgan?" "Morgan was your mother's maiden name, you can say, if anyone asks." Deanna tested the name, saying it aloud a few times. "Deanna Morgan. I like it. It feels like a new beginning." Over the next few days, Deanna found work at a small dress shop, helping with alterations and repairs. The owner, a widow named Mrs. Fletcher, was kind and asked few questions. Cole, meanwhile, found work at a livery stable, tending horses and doing repairs. The pay was not much, but it was enough to cover their expenses and save a little for the future. They fell into a routine, working during the day and spending their evenings together, eating dinner and talking. Cole found himself looking forward to those evenings more than he wanted to admit. Deanna was easy to talk to, and she had a way of drawing him out, making him share stories about his childhood, his dreams. The man he had been before grief had hollowed him out. One evening, about 2 weeks after they arrived in Las Vegas, they were walking by the river that ran through town when Deanna stopped suddenly. "What is wrong?" Cole asked, immediately alert. "Nothing is wrong. I just realized something." She turned to face him, her dark eyes shining in the moonlight. "I am happy, Cole. For the first time in years I am genuinely happy, and it is because of you." Cole felt his chest tighten. "Deanna." "I know this is complicated," she said quickly. "I know you are still grieving your wife, and I know I am technically still married to Raymond, even though I ran away. But I need you to know how I feel. You saved my life, but more than that, you gave me a reason to want to live. You make me feel safe and valued and seen. I think I am falling in love with you, Cole Dalton." The words hung in the air between them, heavy with meaning. Cole's first instinct was to pull away to protect himself from the possibility of pain. But when he looked into Diana's eyes, he saw the same fear that he felt, the same vulnerability. She was taking a risk by telling him this, opening herself up to rejection after everything she had been through, and he realized that he felt the same way. Somewhere along the road from San Elizario to Las Vegas, Diana had become more than someone he was helping. She had become someone he cared about, someone he thought about when he woke and when he went to sleep. Someone who made him want to be better, to feel again, to live instead of just existing. "I think I am falling in love with you too," Cole said, and the words felt like a confession and a promise all at once. Deanna smiled, and it was like the sun breaking through clouds. She stepped closer, and Cole pulled her into his arms, holding her as if she were something precious and fragile. They stood like that for a long time, the river flowing beside them, the stars wheeling overhead. When they finally pulled apart, Deanna looked up at him. "What do we do now?" "We keep going," Cole said. "We build a life together. But Deanna, we need to do this right. You are still legally married, and until that is resolved, we need to be careful." "How do I resolve it? Raymond will never agree to a divorce." Cole had been thinking about this. "There might be a way. If we can prove he abused you, a judge might grant an annulment. It would not be easy, and it would mean facing him in court, but it is possible." Deanna's face paled. "I do not know if I can do that, go back there, see him again. You would not be alone. I would be with you every step of the way. And Deanna, if you want a real future, a legal one where you can marry again and not have to hide, this is the way." She was quiet for a long time, and Cole could see the war playing out behind her eyes. Fear versus hope. The past versus the future. Finally, she nodded. "All right, I will do it." "But not yet. Can we have some time first? Some time to just be happy, as long as you need," Cole promised. They spent the next few months building a life in Las Vegas. Cole's work at the livery stable turned into a partnership when the owner, an older man named Tom Grant, offered to sell him half the business. Cole used the money he had saved from his years at the Double R, and suddenly, he was not just a ranch hand anymore. He was a business owner with a stake in something that could grow. Diana continued working at the dress shop, and Mrs. Fletcher grew fond of her. When the older woman decided to retire, she offered to sell the shop to Deanna. It was a dream Deanna had not dared to have, but with Cole's encouragement and a loan from the local bank, she bought it. They were careful to maintain separate residences, Deanna still at the boarding house and Cole in a small room above the livery. But everyone in town knew they were courting, and no one seemed to think it was scandalous. In the West, people were more concerned with what you did than with your past, and both Cole and Diana had proven themselves to be hardworking and honest. As winter approached, Cole knew they could not put off the inevitable any longer. If they wanted a real future together, they had to deal with Raymond Norton. He hired a lawyer, a sharp-eyed man named Arthur Pemberton, who listened to Diana's story and agreed to take the case. "You will need evidence," Pemberton said, "witnesses who can testify to the abuse." Diana looked stricken. "I do not know if anyone will." Raymond was careful, and the people who did see, like his sister, they will not speak against him. "What about medical records?" Cole asked. "She had broken ribs. There must be a doctor who treated her." Diana shook her head. "Raymond would not let me see a doctor. He said it was too risky." Pemberton frowned. "Then we will need something else. Letters, perhaps. Anything in writing where he admitted to the abuse or made threats." "He was not stupid enough to put anything in writing," Diana said. "He told me once that he would kill me if I ever left him, but it was in private. There were no witnesses." Cole felt frustration building. "So what do? We file for annulment based on cruelty," Pemberton said. "Mrs. Norton can testify to the abuse herself, and you, Mr. Dalton, can testify to her condition when you found her. The bruises, the broken ribs, it might not be enough, but it is a start." "When do we start?" Deanna asked. "I will file the paperwork next week, but Mrs. Norton, you should prepare yourself. Mr. Norton will be notified and he will fight this. He may even come here." Diana reached for Cole's hand and he squeezed it reassuringly. "Let him come. We will be ready." But nothing could have prepared them for what happened next. 2 days after Pemberton filed the annulment papers, Raymond Norton arrived in Las Vegas with a lawyer and a warrant for Deanna's arrest, claiming she had stolen money from him when she fled. Cole was at the livery when the sheriff came to find him. "You know a woman named Deanna Norton?" the sheriff asked. His name was Bill Hastings, and Cole had gotten to know him over the months in town. He was a fair man, but he took his job seriously. "I know Deanna Morgan," Cole said carefully. "That is her real name, Norton, and she is wanted for theft in El Paso. I have got a warrant here, and I am going to have to bring her in." Cole felt his blood run cold. "Sheriff, you do not understand. Her husband is the one who belongs in jail, not her. He beat her, starved her, nearly killed her." "That may be, but I have got a legal warrant. If she wants to fight the charges, she can do it in court. But right now, I need to bring her in." Cole wanted to argue, to fight, but he knew it would only make things worse. "Can I come with you? I suppose that is all right." They found Deanna at the dress shop, and when she saw the sheriff, her face went white. Cole moved to her side immediately, taking her hand. "It is going to be all right," he said, though he was not sure he believed it. Deanna was taken to the small jail in the center of town, and Cole spent the rest of the day trying to find Pemberton. When he finally located the lawyer, Pemberton's expression was grim. "Norton is playing dirty," he said. "The theft charge is bogus, but it is enough to get her extradited back to El Paso. Once she is there, he will have control over her again." "We cannot let that happen," Cole said. "We can fight the extradition, but it will take time. And we will need bail money to get her out of jail while we fight it." "How much?" $500. Cole did not have that kind of money. The livery was doing well, but most of his capital was tied up in inventory and equipment. He went to the bank, but they refused to loan him the money without collateral. In desperation, he went to Mrs. Fletcher. The older woman listened to his story, her expression growing more troubled as he spoke. When he finished, she stood and went to a locked drawer in her desk, pulling out a small bag. "My late husband left me this," she said, handing Cole the bag. "I have been saving it for a rainy day. I think this qualifies." Inside was $500 in gold coins. Cole stared at it, overwhelmed. "I cannot take this." "You can, and you will. Deanna is a good girl, and she does not deserve what that monster has done to her. You get her out of jail, and you fight for her, you hear me?" Cole nodded, his throat tight with emotion. "I will pay you back." "I know you will." With the bail money, Cole was able to get Deanna released that evening. She fell into his arms, trembling, and he held her tight. "We are going to fight this," he said. "We are going to win." "What if we do not?" Deanna whispered. "What if I have to go back to him?" "That is not going to happen. I will not let it." The trial took place 3 weeks later, and the courtroom was packed. Raymond Norton sat at the front, looking every bit the respectable banker, his face a mask of concern. When Deanna took the stand, Cole saw her hands shaking, but her voice was steady as she told her story. She described the abuse in detail, the beatings, the starvation, the threats. She told the court about the broken ribs, about being locked in a room for days, about the terror that had been her constant companion. And when Pemberton asked her about the money she was accused of stealing, she did not deny taking it. "It was not theft," she said. "It was survival. I took what I needed to escape, and I would do it again." Raymond Norton's lawyer tried to paint her as a hysterical woman who was exaggerating her claims. But when Cole took the stand and described finding Deanna in the river, bruised and beaten and half dead, the lawyer's arguments fell flat. The judge, an older man with kind eyes, listened to everything, then retired to his chambers to make his decision. When he returned an hour later, his expression was stern. "I have heard both sides of this case," he said. "And while I cannot prove beyond a doubt what happened in the Norton household, I can say this. Mrs. Norton bore visible signs of abuse when she was found, and no one, not even her husband, has denied that. The so-called theft was a woman taking what she needed to save her own life. In my view, that is not a crime." He looked at Raymond Norton, and his voice hardened. "Mr. Norton, your wife is filing for an annulment based on cruelty, and based on what I have heard today, I am inclined to grant it. You will have the opportunity to present your case, but I warn you, if you continue to pursue criminal charges against Mrs. Norton, I will see it as harassment and rule accordingly." Raymond Norton's face turned red with rage, but he said nothing. The judge dismissed the theft charges, and the annulment hearing was scheduled for the following month. Cole and Deanna walked out of the courthouse hand in hand, and for the first time, Deanna looked hopeful. "You think we will really win?" she asked. "I know we will," Cole said. That judge saw the truth. He knows what Norton is. The annulment hearing was shorter than the trial. Raymond Norton tried to argue that he had been a good husband, that Deanna was lying, but the judge cut him off. "I have heard enough," he said. "The annulment is granted, Mrs. Norton. You are free to go, and you are no longer legally bound to this man. Mr. Norton, if you approach Mrs. Norton or attempt to contact her in any way, I will have you arrested. Do I make myself clear?" Raymond Norton stood, his face twisted with fury. "You have not heard the last of this," he hissed, looking at Deanna. "You are going to regret this." "Bailiff, escort Mr. Norton out of my courtroom," the judge ordered. "And Mr. Norton, that sounded suspiciously like a threat. I suggest you leave Las Vegas and not come back." As Raymond was led away, Deanna sagged against Cole, tears streaming down her face. But they were tears of relief, of joy, of freedom finally won. "It is over," she whispered. "It is really over." Cole held her close, his own eyes stinging. "It is over. You are free." That night, they celebrated with Mrs. Fletcher and Arthur Pemberton, a quiet dinner filled with laughter and hope. And when Cole walked Deanna back to the boarding house, he stopped at the bottom of the stairs, just as she had done months earlier. "Deanna Morgan," he said, and she smiled at the use of her new name. "I know we have been through a lot, and I know we are still figuring things out, but I do not want to wait anymore. I do not want to spend another day without you knowing how much you mean to me. I love you. I want to marry you, build a life with you, grow old with you. Will you marry me?" Diana's eyes filled with tears, but they were happy tears. "Yes," she said. "Yes, Cole Dalton, I will marry you." They were married a month later in a small church on the edge of town with Mrs. Fletcher and Tom Grant as witnesses. Deanna wore a dress she had made herself, white with delicate embroidery, and Cole wore a new suit that made him feel stiff and uncomfortable. But when he saw Deanna walking toward him, none of that mattered. All he could see was her smile, the joy in her eyes, the love that radiated from her like light. The preacher spoke about commitment and faith, about standing by each other through trials and triumphs. And when he pronounced them husband and wife, Cole kissed Deanna with a tenderness that made his heart ache. This was his second chance, and he was not going to waste it. They bought a small house on the outskirts of Las Vegas, with enough land for a garden and a stable for their horses. Cole's livery business continued to grow, and Deanna's dress shop became known throughout the territory for the quality of her work. They built a life together, one day at a time, one choice at a time. A year after their wedding, Deanna told Cole she was expecting a baby. He was terrified and thrilled in equal measure, memories of Sarah's illness haunting him. But Deanna was strong and healthy, and when their daughter was born in the spring of 1880, Cole held her in his arms and wept. They named her Sarah Deanna Dalton, honoring both the past and the present. She had her mother's dark hair and her father's gray eyes, and from the moment she entered the world, she owned Cole's heart completely. Over the years, more children followed. A son named Thomas, then another daughter named Eleanor. The house that had seemed so spacious when they bought it became filled with noise and laughter, with toys scattered across the floor and children's voices echoing through the rooms. Cole had never imagined this kind of happiness was possible. He had thought his life was over when Sarah died, that he had used up his allotment of joy and was destined to live out his days in gray emptiness. But Deanna had shown him that the heart had more capacity than he had ever known, that love was not a finite resource but something that grew and deepened with time. He still thought about Sarah sometimes, especially on the anniversary of her death. But the memories no longer brought only pain. He could remember the good times without being crushed by the loss, could honor what they had shared while still embracing what he had with Deanna. One evening, when the children were in bed and Cole and Deanna sat on the porch watching the sunset, Deanna took his hand. "You ever regret it?" she asked. "Pulling me out of that river. Your life would have been simpler if you had just ridden on." Cole turned to look at her, this woman who had changed everything. "Not for a second," he said. "You gave me my life back, Deanna. You reminded me that I was still alive, that I could still feel and hope and love. I was the one drowning, and you saved me." Deanna leaned her head on his shoulder, and they sat in comfortable silence, watching the sky turn from gold to purple to deep blue. Inside the house, they could hear the sounds of their children settling down for the night, the life they had built together humming around them. It had been 12 years since that day by the Rio Grande, 12 years since Cole had found a broken woman in the water and decided to help her. So much had happened since then, so many trials and triumphs, so many moments of fear and joy. But through it all, they had held onto each other, had chosen love over fear, hope over despair. Cole thought about the man he had been back then, harsh and closed off, convinced that caring was weakness, and that the only way to survive grief was to shut himself off from the world. He had been so wrong. The only way to survive grief was to live through it, to honor the loss but not let it define you, to open yourself up to new possibilities even when it terrified you. "What are you thinking about?" Deanna asked. "How lucky I am," Cole said. "How grateful I am that you fell into that river and that I was there to pull you out." "I am grateful too," Deanna said. "For you, for our family, for this life. I never thought I would be this happy, Cole. I never thought I deserved it." "You deserve all of it and more," Cole said fiercely. "You are the strongest person I know, Deanna. You survived something that would have destroyed most people, and you came out the other side with your heart intact, ready to love and trust again. That takes more courage than I can even imagine." Deanna smiled and kissed him, a soft, lingering kiss that still had the power to make his heart race even after years of marriage. "We saved each other," she said. "That is what matters." As the stars began to appear in the darkening sky, Cole wrapped his arm around his wife and thought about the future. Their eldest daughter would be starting school in the fall, and Tom had already announced his intention to follow in his father's footsteps and work with horses. Alina was still too young to know what she wanted, but she had Deanna's creativity and Cole's determination, a combination that would serve her well whatever path she chose. The livery stable had expanded to include a blacksmith shop, and they employed 3 men full-time. Deanna's dress shop had become so successful that she had taken on 2 apprentices, young women learning the trade. They had built something real and lasting, something that would outlive them. But more than the businesses or the house or the material success, what mattered most to Cole was the love they had created. Their family was built on a foundation of trust and respect, on the knowledge that they had both survived darkness and chosen to step into the light together. Their children were growing up knowing they were loved, knowing that their parents were partners in the truest sense of the word. That night, after Deanna had gone to bed, Cole stood in the doorway of each of his children's rooms, watching them sleep. Sarah Deanna, who at 8 years old already showed signs of her mother's kindness and her father's stubbornness. Thomas, 6 years old and full of energy, dreaming of the horses he would train someday. And Alina, just 3, clutching her favorite doll and snoring softly. This was what he had been saving all those years ago when he pulled Deanna from the river. Not just her life, but this whole future. These children who would never have existed if he had ridden past. Every choice rippled outward in ways you could never predict, creating waves that touched lives you would never know. Cole returned to his own room, where Deanna was already asleep, her dark hair spread across the pillow. He undressed quietly and slipped into bed beside her, and she instinctively curled into him, even in sleep seeking his warmth. He held her close, breathing in the scent of her hair, feeling the steady rhythm of her breathing. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges, its own joys and sorrows. But tonight, Cole was content. He had everything he needed right here in this bed, in this house, in this life they had built together from the wreckage of their pasts. He thought about the young man he had been when he met Sarah, full of dreams and hopes. He thought about the broken man he had become after she died, convinced that his story was over. And he thought about the man he was now, a husband and father, a businessman and friend, someone who had learned that the heart could break and mend and break again, and still have the capacity to love. The journey from the Rio Grande to this moment had been long and hard, filled with obstacles that had seemed insurmountable. But they had overcome everyone together, and that was the key. Together. Not alone, not isolated in grief or fear, but hand in hand, facing whatever came with courage and faith. As sleep finally claimed him, Cole's last thought was a prayer of gratitude, For Diana, for his children, for the second chance he had been given when he thought there were no second chances left. He had been drowning in his grief, and Diana had been drowning in the river, and somehow, impossibly, they had saved each other. The years continued to pass, marked by the small and large moments that make up a life. Birthdays and holidays, first steps and first words, arguments and reconciliations. Cole's hair began to show gray at the temples, and Diana developed fine lines around her eyes from years of smiling. They grew older together, their love deepening into something richer and more complex than the desperate need they had felt in those early days. When Sarah Diana turned 16, she announced that she wanted to become a teacher, following in her namesake's footsteps. Cole and Diana were proud, though Cole worried about her leaving home to attend the teacher's college in Santa Fe. But Diana reminded him that their daughter was strong and capable, that they had raised her to be independent and confident. "She is not a little girl anymore," Diana said gently. "She is becoming a woman and we need to let her go." Cole knew Diana was right, but it did not make it any easier. On the day they took Sarah Diana to Santa Fe, he found himself fighting tears as he hugged his daughter goodbye. "I am so proud of you," he told her. "Your mother would be too, the one you are named for. She loved learning and teaching, and I know you will honor her memory." Sarah Diana hugged him tight. "I will make you proud, Papa, I promise." "You already have," Cole said. Thomas, meanwhile, had indeed followed his passion for horses. By the time he was 14, he was working alongside Cole at the livery, showing a natural talent for training even the most difficult animals. Cole watched his son with pride, seeing in him the same qualities he had admired in his own father, a quiet patience and an understanding of horses that went beyond mere technique. Eleanor, the baby of the family, surprised everyone by showing an interest in medicine. She was always bringing home injured birds or stray cats, nursing them back to health with a dedication that spoke of a true calling. When she announced at 12 years old that she wanted to be a doctor, Diana and Cole exchanged glances. "That is a hard path for a woman," Diana said carefully. "There are not many female doctors, and you will face obstacles." "I know," Eleanor said, her chin set in a way that reminded Cole of himself. "But you faced obstacles too, Mama, and you overcame them. If you can do it, so can I." Cole smiled. "Then we will support you every step of the way." The children were not the only ones who continued to grow and change. Diana expanded her business again, this time opening a small factory where she employed a dozen women to produce ready-made dresses for sale throughout the territory. It was innovative and risky, but it paid off. Within 5 years, Diana's designs were being sold as far east as St. Louis and as far west as San Francisco. Cole's livery and blacksmith shop became one of the most respected in New Mexico, and he found himself training apprentices, passing on the skills and knowledge he had accumulated over a lifetime. He took pride in seeing young men master the craft, in knowing that his work would continue long after he was gone. But through all the success and growth, what Cole treasured most were the quiet moments. Sunday dinners with the whole family gathered around the table, everyone talking over each other in their eagerness to share their week. Evening walks with Diana, their hands clasped, their steps perfectly matched after years of walking side by side. Late nights sitting on the porch, watching the stars and talking about everything and nothing. One evening, when Cole was 52 and Diana was 48, they received word that Raymond Norton had died. He had lived in El Paso, alone and bitter, his bank having failed years earlier. The news came in a telegram from Arthur Pemberton, who had kept tabs on Norton over the years just to be safe. Diana read the telegram, then handed it to Cole without a word. He read it, and then looked at his wife, searching her face for some reaction. But Diana's expression was calm, almost peaceful. "How do you feel?" he asked. "Free," Diana said. "I have been free for years, I know that. But knowing he is gone, that he can never hurt anyone else the way he hurt me, it is like the last chain has been broken." Cole pulled her into his arms, and they stood together in the fading light, holding each other the way they had that first night by the river. Two people who had found each other in the darkness and chosen to step into the light together. "I love you," Cole said, the words as true now as they had been the day he first spoke them. "I love you too," Diana replied. "Always." The years that followed were perhaps the happiest of Cole's life. His children grew into remarkable adults, each pursuing their dreams with the determination and courage their parents had instilled in them. Sarah Diana became a beloved teacher in a small town in Colorado, married to a kind man who respected her intelligence and supported her work. Thomas took over the livery and blacksmith shop when Cole decided to retire, running it with the same integrity his father had shown. And Alina, against all odds, became one of the first female doctors in New Mexico, opening a practice that specialized in caring for women and children. Cole and Diana became grandparents, and their house once again filled with the sound of children's laughter. They spoiled their grandchildren shamelessly, taking them on picnics and teaching them to ride horses and telling them stories about the old days. On their 25th wedding anniversary, their children threw them a party that brought together everyone they had known over the years. Mrs. Fletcher was there, now in her 80s but still sharp as ever. Tom Grant came, retired from the livery but still passionate about horses. Arthur Pemberton attended, bringing his wife and children. Even Senora Ortiz from the boarding house in Las Vegas made the journey. As Cole looked around the room at all these people who had touched their lives in big and small ways, he felt overwhelmed with gratitude. This was what they had built, not just a business or a house, but a community, a network of love and support that extended far beyond their immediate family. When it came time for speeches, Cole stood up, his hand trembling slightly. He was not good with words, never had been, but he had things he needed to say. 25 years ago, I married the most remarkable woman I have ever known, he began. But our story did not start on our wedding day. It started 3 years before that, on a day when I was at my lowest, convinced that my life was over and that there was nothing left for me but to go through the motions until I died. He looked at Diana, who was watching him with tears in her eyes. Then I heard someone drowning in the Rio Grande, and I pulled her out, and everything changed. Diana saved me that day as much as I saved her. She reminded me that life is precious, that love is possible even after loss, that the human heart has more capacity for joy than we can imagine. His voice broke, and he had to pause to collect himself. We have built a beautiful life together, Diana and I. We have raised 3 incredible children who have gone on to do amazing things. We have built businesses and friendships and a home filled with love. But more than any of that, we have built a partnership based on trust and respect, and the knowledge that we are stronger together than we could ever be apart. He raised his glass. To Diana, the love of my life, my partner, my best friend, to the next 25 years and all the years after that. To the life we have built, and the life we will continue to build together. Everyone raised their glasses and cheered, and Diana stood up and kissed him, and Cole felt his heart swell with a love so big, it seemed impossible that one person could contain it. As the party continued around them, Cole and Diana slipped outside, needing a moment alone. They walked to the spot behind their house where they had planted a garden years ago, where roses bloomed in the summer and vegetables grew in neat rows. You remember the day we planted this garden?" Deanna asked. "I do," Cole said. "You were 6 months pregnant with Sarah, Deanna, and I was terrified you were going to go into labor right there in the dirt." Deanna laughed. "You have always worried too much. Can you blame me? After everything we went through to get here, I am not taking any chances with our happiness." Deanna squeezed his hand. "We are going to be all right, Cole. We have always been all right, even when it seemed impossible. That is what love does. It makes the impossible possible." They stood in the garden, surrounded by the life they had created, and Cole thought about the journey that had brought them here. The pain and the healing, the fear and the courage, the losses and the gains. It had not been an easy road, but it had been worth it. Every moment, every choice, every risk they had taken had led them to this place, this moment, this perfect evening surrounded by people they loved. As the sun set and the stars began to appear, Cole pulled Deanna close and kissed her, a kiss that held 25 years of love and partnership and unshakable commitment. A kiss that promised 25 more years and beyond, as long as they had together. They returned to the party hand in hand, ready to celebrate with their family and friends, ready to embrace whatever came next. Because they knew now, after all these years, that whatever challenges life threw at them, they could face it together. They had proven it over and over, from that first desperate moment in the Rio Grande to this evening of joy and celebration. Cole Dalton had been a grieving cowboy, too harsh for love, convinced that his heart had died with his first wife. But Deanna Norton, a woman fleeing abuse and fighting for her life, had shown him that the heart never truly dies. It just waits, sometimes for years, for the right person to come along and remind it how to beat again. And when they finally went to bed that night, exhausted but happy, Cole held Deanna close and whispered the same words he had whispered every night for 25 years. "Thank you for falling into that river. Thank you for letting me save you. Thank you for saving me right back." Deanna smiled in the darkness. "Thank you for not riding past. Thank you for taking a chance on a broken woman. Thank you for showing me what real love looks like." They fell asleep in each other's arms, two souls who had found each other against all odds and had built something beautiful from the wreckage of their pasts. Their story had started with violence and grief and desperate survival, but it had become something else entirely. A testament to the power of love, the resilience of the human spirit, and the simple truth that it is never too late to start again. The years continued to pass, gentler now, marked by the rhythms of a life well lived. Cole and Deanna aged gracefully, their hair turning white, their steps growing slower, but their love never diminishing. They spent their days tending their garden, playing with their grandchildren, and simply being together, grateful for every moment they had been given. When Cole was 72, he woke one morning and knew, with the certainty that comes from having lived a full life, that his time was drawing to a close. His heart, which had beaten strong for so many years, was finally growing tired. He did not fear death. He had faced it before, had lived through losing someone he loved, and had learned that love continued even after death. He told Deanna, and she cried, but she also understood. They had always been honest with each other, had never hidden their fears or their sorrows. "I am not ready to let you go," she said, her voice breaking. "I know," Cole said, pulling her close. "And I am not ready to leave you, but Deanna, we have had a good life, haven't we? We have loved and been loved. We have raised children and grandchildren. We have built something real and lasting. That is more than most people ever get." "It is not enough," Deanna said. "I want more time. So do I. But we do not always get what we want. We get what we are given, and we make the most of it. And we have made the most of it, you and I." Cole lived for 3 more months, and they were precious months, filled with visits from their children and grandchildren, with long conversations and quiet moments, with all the small intimacies of a marriage that had spanned decades. And when the end finally came, Cole died peacefully in his sleep with Deanna's hand in his and a smile on his face. Diana grieved, as anyone would grieve the loss of their beloved. But she also celebrated the life they had shared, the love that had transformed them both. She lived for another 8 years, surrounded by her family, still working in her dress shop, still finding joy in the small things. And when her own time came, she died with her children at her side, telling them stories about their father, about the day he had pulled her from the river and changed both their lives forever. At her funeral, their daughter Alina, now a respected doctor in her 60s, spoke about her parents' love. "My mother and father taught us that love is not just a feeling," Alina said. "It is a choice, made over and over again every day. It is choosing to be kind when you are angry. It is choosing to forgive when you are hurt. It is choosing to stay when it would be easier to leave." They chose each other every single day for more than 4 decades, and in doing so, they showed us what it means to truly love another person. "Their story could have ended tragically," she continued. "My mother was running for her life and my father was drowning in grief. They both could have given up, but instead they chose to take a chance on each other, to believe that there could be happiness after pain, love after loss. And because they made that choice, we are all here today. Their children, their grandchildren, and their great-grandchildren. We exist because they were brave enough to love when it would have been safer to close their hearts." Alina looked out at the gathered family, 3 generations strong. So when we remember Cole and Deanna Dalton, let us remember not just that they loved each other, but that they chose to love. And let us honor their memory by making that same choice in our own lives. To love bravely, to love generously, to love even when it is hard. That is their legacy. That is their gift to us. The family gathered at the cemetery where Cole and Deanna were buried side by side, their headstones simple but elegant. The wind whispered through the trees and the sun shone down, warm and bright. And if you stood there in that quiet place, you could almost feel it, the love that had bound them together in life and bound them still in death. Their story had started with a drowning woman and a grieving cowboy, with violence and loss and desperate hope. But it had become something beautiful, something that would ripple outward through generations, touching lives that Cole and Deanna would never know. Because that is what real love does. It transforms not just the people who share it, but everyone they touch, creating waves of kindness and compassion that echo through time. And so the story of Cole Dalton and Deanna Norton, 2 broken people who found each other and built something whole, came to its close. Not with tragedy or bitterness, but with gratitude and joy and the profound satisfaction of a life lived fully and loved completely. They had started as strangers, become friends, fell deeply in love, and built a legacy that would endure long after they were gone. Their house in Las Vegas still stood decades later, occupied by their descendants, filled with the laughter of children who carried their blood and their names. The livery stable still operated, now run by Cole's great-grandson. The dress shop had evolved into a boutique, still using some of Diana's original designs. But more than the physical places or the businesses, what endured was the story itself. Parents told it to their children, who told it to their children, passing down the tale of the grieving cowboy who was too harsh for love until he saved an abused woman from the river. It became family legend, a reminder that it is never too late to start again, that love can heal even the deepest wounds, that 2 broken people can create something whole and beautiful together. And perhaps on quiet nights when the wind blew just right, you could hear echoes of their voices in that house. Cole's deep and steady, Deanna's warm and gentle, talking and laughing and loving each other the way they had for more than 40 years. Not ghosts exactly, but presences, the imprint of a love so strong it could not be erased even by death. Their story was complete, their journey finished. But the love they had shared lived on in their descendants, in the buildings they had built, in the lives they had touched, and in the hearts of everyone who heard their story and believed, even for a moment, that love could conquer anything, that it was never too late to begin again, and that sometimes the person drowning in a river and the person drowning in grief could save each other and build something extraordinary from the wreckage of their pasts. The end was not an end at all, but a beginning that continued long after the final breath had been drawn, a testament to the enduring power of love and the unbreakable bonds that connect us all. Cole and Deanna Dalton had lived and loved and left behind a legacy that would never die. And that, perhaps, is the best any of us can hope for, to love so completely, so bravely, so fully, that the effects of that love echo through eternity. Their story, which began with tragedy and fear, ended with triumph and peace. And in between was a lifetime of moments, some grand and some small, that added up to something precious and rare. A love that transformed two wounded souls into something greater than they ever could have been alone. They had saved each other, healed each other, and loved each other with everything they had. And in the end, that was more than enough. It was everything.